welcome into It's Just Wrestling. I am very excited to be here with all of you. I have to admit right off the jump, I have 4 kids, and they got me sick, and I somehow avoided it for like a week and a half. And then I did episode 15, this show. I did episode 15, about an hour and a half ago. I got through 36 or so minutes. My voice gave out at the very end, and I was like, you know what? Good show. I gave myself a pat on the back. I said, Russ, good job. Good job with the show today. And I pinged our video guy, Amadeo, and I said, yo, dude, show's ready to go if you want to start clipping it up, because he's done a great job of growing the TikTok and Instagram and everything else, and YouTube. And so I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'm done. I'm going to go rest my voice. I'm going to feel better. He messages me back. He goes, Russ, I think we have a problem. I said, I don't like problems. What is this problem? He said, there's no audio. I said, you must be mistaken. I've never had the audio not record before. He's like, oh, no. There's no audio. So I said, okay, well, let's give it a second and we'll make sure that, maybe it's just like a weird uploading thing. Oh, no, there was no audio. So there's like a 36 or 38 minute recording where it's just my face and it's me gesticulating and pointing at images over on the side as I broke down the big stories from Saturday night's main event, Collision, Raw, Dynamite, and previewed the Royal Rumble. And then I got to the end and I went, 36, 38 minutes. Show's gone. So some people would have given up. Some people would not. I am not a quitter. My wife took all the kids to soccer practice. When she left, I could barely talk. I went and made myself some sweet and spicy tea in this WWF mug, which, let me see. Can I do a little zoomy zoom here? Because if I can, it's going to be glorious. There you go. You see a little mug. Anyway, I had some tea, and I decided we're going to go for it today. We're going to give it another go. I have good news for you. The show that no one will ever hear, it was a good show. It legitimately was. What I can tell you is this show is going to be even better because I feel at least slightly better, slightly more alive. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's shall. I told all of you people. What do you mean, you people? What do you mean, you people? I told all you people last week. I said, listen, Jacob Fatu, he is the truth. He is the future of the WWE. He's arguably the most important person on WWE TV right now. He's a future megastar. He's absolutely the most compelling character in the bloodline right now. At least, other than Roman Reigns. He's the most compelling one. Oh, we got Saturday night's main event. Oh, yeah. Jacob Fatu put on an absolute clinic. Put on an absolute masterclass in the ring. Decimated, broke down, destroyed, mollywopped Braun Strowman. The monster among men. The monster among men was left cowering on the mat, begging for forgiveness, begging for mercy. And it took me back to, what was his name? Commodus in Gladiator. Am I not merciful? Am I not merciful? Jacob Fatu is not merciful. Jacob Fatu is a mercenary. Jacob Fatu is an absolutely frightening human being. Jacob Fatu had the San Antonio audience in the palm of his hand. So much so that we kept hearing one more time on the moonsaults. Then they were chanting Fatu, Fatu. Now, I don't know if the idea here was to turn him babyface, but it's going to be kind of hard to make the man a heel now because that San Antonio crowd was eating up everything Jacob Fatu put on the plate in front of them. And like I said, he was the guy I was the most looking forward to seeing on Saturday night's main event. I pointed out, the first one of these shows, I said, it kind of felt like a house show, but I get it. Nostalgia. We're now 2 of these in. And I'm not going to compare it to AEW's Battle of the Belts, but, it's okay. If you miss it, I don't think you really miss a lot. But this Fatu match, if you miss this, you miss something really big. Now, I think he is the most compelling person in the bloodline. And I don't know if he's going to end up in the Royal Rumble. I hope he does. And I hope he absolutely clears the ring. I don't know if I want to go the full Brock Lesnar a few years ago, where Lesnar got into the ring and embarrassed everyone, cleared out everyone. But I would like to see Jacob Fatu have a moment to shine in the Royal Rumble. That'd be pretty badass. Now, that is only one thing that happened on Saturday. But on the other company, a very different star was reborn again as Timeless Toni Storm popped up over on Collision. Now, if you've been following what's been going on with Toni Storm, there was this amnesia angle that they've been running with Toni Storm where she re-debuted with the rock and roll Toni Storm. Yeah! And she was going after, she had eyes on the prize, but she wasn't actively trying to get in Mariah May's way. She was trying to earn her stripes, earn her way from being a rookie in AEW to climb the ladder. And at Collision last Saturday, we finally got the face-off between Toni Storm and Mariah May. Mariah May socks her, walks out of the ring. Toni Storm gets a mic while she's not feeling the best after the encounter. She says, "What makes you think I've forgotten? The hardest role to play is yourself." She strips down out of the rock and roll getup, and she re-debuts as Timeless Toni Storm. And she tells Mariah May, in no uncertain terms, that she will be ripping off her tetas. We're going to be very family friendly here. Probably won't be when I get to something else later in the show where I'm going to likely curse. I did on the first version of the show today. But she tells that Mariah May, your tetas are going to be ripped off. Oh boy. Now, this will likely be the main event of Grand Slam Australia. We still don't know when Grand Slam Australia is going to happen. A big reason that we don't know is because it doesn't even seem the company knows when we can expect the show to air. If you remember, they told everyone that it was going to air at normal Collision time, only to have that bump into NBA All-Star Saturday with the three-point contest and the dunk contest. So it seems as though it's going to be like midnight, 1 a.m. on the East Coast before Grand Slam Australia airs. I've been asking the question and no one's answered it. But like why they aren't just doing a live simulcast from Australia on Max that you could then access throughout the day, I don't understand. And is this going to be on a delay or are we actually going to get this anytime soon? These are questions I have. Now anyway, Timeless Toni Storm, easily one of the best characters in AEW, easily one of the best workers in the business. This has to be the number one storyline right now in all of AEW. Should it have happened on Collision? That was the big question, because if we're being fair, Dynamite has its audience, Collision has its audience. Collision's audience is roughly half the size, maybe a third of the size, depending on the week, of what Dynamite does. Should this have aired on Collision? Some say yes and some say no. Now, I'm pretty easy to entertain, and I'm pretty easy to convince. Should this have been on Collision? I say, yeah, it's fine. It's fine if you're trying to reestablish Collision as being a must-see program. And in fairness, whether people want to admit it or not, it's had some moments. But the last time that Collision felt like it was must-see TV is when CM Punk and his crew were still running the show. And when you had Kevin Kelly on commentary and then Ian Riccaboni eventually kind of taking over, a Wally Pipp situation. That's when Collision felt like must-watch TV. It has otherwise kind of been degraded to almost Rampage level interest. So they're clearly trying to build Collision back up. And we did see that again this week with a woeful Dynamite card and then a Collision card that looks significantly better. Now, Timeless Toni Storm wasn't the only good thing to happen on this show. Powerhouse Hobbs and Big Bill had a nice match around the arena. Nice little street fight. I'm a big Powerhouse Hobbs guy. I'm a big Bill guy, the Redwood, who's seemingly going to split off from the Learning Tree sooner than later. But I'm a big believer in those two guys. I love the idea of those guys getting actual TV time. And then we did see them both again on Dynamite promo times. It sounds like Hobbs had some kind of a laceration, a cut. Stitches come out next week or come out later this week, so he couldn't be part of physicality or whatever on the show. But Collision was good. Collision was perfectly fine. And I don't have a problem with this big storyline playing out on the show. If you're going to have two shows, you killed off Rampage. If you're going to have two shows, yeah, one is going to be your A show, but it doesn't mean that your other show has to then become a C or a D show. It should be maybe your B show, but not that far off in quality. So I don't have a problem with it. But if the ratings continue to be what they have been on Collision, I don't know. I still think it's a bad night. I still think that having a Saturday night show is a bad idea. But nobody cares what I think. Well, you do. Maybe you do. And I care what I think. Do you know who I care about even more? And do you want to know whose opinions I care about even more? I care significantly more about what I saw on Monday Night Raw. Because we were treated to yet another face-off between Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. And it wasn't your average run-of-the-mill Cody Rhodes CM Punk promo. We saw a Cody Rhodes that looked run down, dejected, glazed over. We saw a Cody Rhodes that looked absolutely physically and mentally wiped. Almost a Cody Rhodes that was honestly kind of anguished. And then CM Punk comes out. And they both kind of have these moments where they're like, you're my friend, right? Yeah, I'm your friend. Are you my friend? Yeah. Now, from the second that Punk entered the ring, it was like a 9.5-minute promo. These guys had the audience captivated. They did exactly what you're supposed to do with that much time in the ring. Everybody in the arena was laser focused on each and every word. It sometimes makes me wonder, you go back, there's a lot of comparisons between companies. But how did Tony Khan fuck this up? I'll never understand it. How did we never get a Cody Rhodes CM Punk program in AEW? You had them both. Now, there were a lot of rumors. There was some innuendo at the time that maybe Cody asked for a contract that was supposed to show similar value to what Punk was going to get. Maybe Tony Khan didn't feel like Cody was worth that. I don't know. No one knows. And in fairness, no one might ever know. But these two in the ring together, the friendship, the bond over the years, there's something special there. That's a program you can build around for a WrestleMania. But Punk has a line in this promo that is just gutting. He says to Cody, well, you have a bunch of other friends and people who will, stab you in the back. He said, I'll stab you in the front. And I'll take that title. Man, that's brutal. I don't know what kind of friends you have. The friends that I have, I prefer to not get stabbed at all. I don't like getting stabbed in the back or the front. I'd rather not get stabbed anywhere. Cody Rhodes, at least he knows with Punk, going to stab you in the front. Now, Punk kind of takes us on this journey about when he had the belt for over 400 days, and about how lonely it is at the top, how people are always gunning for you, about how hard it is to night in and night out be the champion. Actually kind of reminded me of, is it Gollum or Schmeagol or whatever in Lord of the Rings with the preciouses? But that was what I was immediately reminded of. It's like having this thing that Cody has spent his entire career striving to earn. He finally has it. And now that he's not a deadbeat champ, he's out working a lot of dates that aren't televised, and he's been the face of ad campaigns for Raw on Netflix and more. He looks worn down. This actually gave me shades of when Paul Heyman went through the whole thing where he had the hair was a lot grayer, the eyes were bloodshot, he looked emaciated. That was what I got off of Cody here. You didn't have Cody in the three-piece suit with the pocket watch. You had Cody in a tracksuit. You had Cody looking and sounding worn down. Now, there are a whole lot of different ways that they can go with this. The one that I wanted in AEW, the one that I would like to see here in WWE, is Cody turning, but not full heel. Heel would be fun. A heel Cody could be a lot of fun. But I'm a simple guy. I love the idea of Cody being Homelander. I love the idea of Cody being a delusional heel. A guy who believes that he is the guy, that he is a paramour of virtue, that he is the ultimate good guy. But his actions and the reality point to a guy who's kind of underhanded. Now remember, there was the match with Kevin Owens where Owens brings the chair into the ring. Cody's the one who ultimately ends up using it. That could have been planting a seed. We will find out over the next few weeks, maybe the next few months. But when it comes to this dynamic with Punk, where do you go from there? And if Cody does eventually kind of turn into this quasi heel, what does that mean for Punk? Because make no mistake, these two, this is gold. Punk and McIntyre were fantastic. Punk and Rollins were great. Punk and Cody could be a totally different beast. An entirely different beast. And that, my friends, brings me to Dynamite. Now, as I think I've established here, Dynamite is the one show that I will watch live. I will suffer through commercials because there's still part of me that just wants to believe that AEW can get back to the magic that it had at its inception and for a few years and then through COVID in 2021. I don't know if it's ever going to happen again, but I am delusional enough to ride it out. Wednesday's show was not that. Wednesday's show was not worth watching live. In fact, if you missed Dynamite this week, you might actually be okay to miss it entirely. I mean, I'll walk you through it real quick because it wasn't a very good show. There were some okay matches. There were some decent promos and some decent moments. But this thing was kind of off the rails from the get-go. And it all comes down to the ambiance and to the feeling in the crowd. One of the things that AEW has done exceptionally well of late is get that feeling across of the white-hot crowd in these smaller, intimate, unique venues. You're getting 1,500 or 1,800 people, but the setup is for 1,800 people. You're not playing or doing the show to a 15,000-seat arena and only cramming in 2,000 people in the lower bowl on one side of the ring. Last week's show that started off with the Ospreay and Omega and the Callis family and climbing the stanchions and all that, that felt electric. That felt like, oh, I need to make it to the next Dynamite whenever it's in town. This week was not that. This week they had, I think, around 2,300 people in a 9,000-seat, I believe, arena or 9,000-seat potential setup. And it felt empty, and the crowd didn't feel hot. There were some moments that the crowd got into it, but for the most part, crowd was not into what they got on Dynamite. Now, in fairness, when I saw the card, which I don't know how I missed it, but when I saw the card, I said, you've got to be kidding me. Like, after how strong last week was and how strong Collision was perceived, I saw this card and I went, oh, this isn't even remotely close. Now, in fairness, they did add one more match beyond like the initially announced card. They added Ricochet and AR Fox, which was a fine enough match, and you got a little story progression where Swerve comes to take out Ricochet. Ricochet puts the scissors to the neck of AR Fox, and I guess we're just going to threaten murder every time, but that's okay. So you get that. But like the show starts off with Ospreay and Brian Cage, and it's a perfectly fine match. And it's not all that, I mean, there are some similarities to when Omega fought Brian Cage. And I think Brian Cage is a good worker. He's believable. He's got a hell of a look. But I'm not sure that this is where the story needed to go, especially after running the heels off last week and that great visual of Ospreay and Omega up on the pillar on the stanchion. I don't know if you needed to go back to a regular one-on-one match between Ospreay and Brian Cage this week. That kind of felt underwhelming to me. So I wasn't entirely sure what the thought process was there. But that was okay. It was a good match, and you got this kind of like afterbirth where Omega, who had been shown to be taken out, does make his way out. Ospreay eventually covers up, tries to get in the way, tries to cover up Omega, which is interesting because, again, last week, Omega said, I would never partner with you, and then 15, 20 minutes later was saying, yes, I'll partner with you. Let's go have a tag team match. It Grand Slam Australia, whatever. There are some weird, funky timing things, but that's okay. That part of the show didn't upset me. There were some other things that did, and there were some things that didn't make a lot of sense. One thing that I do like is that there's this cross-pollination right now on the show where you're seeing some of the main event guys starting to cross paths. Renee Paquette is backstage, and Renee is waiting outside of Swerve Strickland's dressing room or whatever. And Hangman shows up, doesn't look angry, but he's looking for Swerve, and then says he's not there. Then he bumps into MJF, and MJF cuts a promo on Jeff Jarrett about how he should have taken the deal with the devil. Okay, fine. Max, backstage promo. That's okay. Trying to rekindle something. But the real issue was the match with Jeff Jarrett and Claudio Castagnoli, because I was once again left wondering, what are we doing here? What is AEW's purpose? What is the Death Riders' purpose? And we got way too much Death Riders on this show. I mean, the card itself was bad, but we got way too much Death Riders on the show. And it especially happened and reared its ugly head in the Jeff Jarrett and Claudio Castagnoli match. Now, the real issue is that Claudio Castagnoli is a thoroughbred. He's a guy who, when he worked for WWE as Cesaro, was claimed to, people said, Vince McMahon isn't booking him well enough. He should be a world title contender. And he never was that guy. And then he made the jump to AEW. He became the Ring of Honor World Champion. He's been a Trios Champion. But Claudio should be able at this point to steamroll 57-year-old Jeff Jarrett. He should be able to. That should be the point. While Jeff Jarrett's been getting sympathy and support of the audience, it's his last year, it's his last run. When you have the opportunity to squash or to semi-squash Jeff Jarrett with Claudio to show, the old guy doesn't still have it the same way that he might have wanted to. There's a story in that. But it wasn't even that. It wasn't even that, Claudio didn't get to just beat the hell out of Jeff Jarrett. It's that he needed the rest of the Death Riders to help him win. There was interference in this match. And that is where things really started to go sideways on the show. Because under no circumstances should Claudio Castagnoli need interference to beat Jeff Jarrett. Makes no sense. After Jeff Jarrett gets his ass beaten, MJF comes out and says, decks him, and then says that I respect my elders, so I'm not going to tell you I told you so. All right, we're progressing that story. Fine. But there was another match on this card that also included the Death Riders. And boy, it was bad. It was about as bad as can be. We had a match where Jay White, Switchblade Jay White, of whom I am a big fan, had to take on Wheeler Yuta. Now, if you've been paying attention, and you have been, you'll know how I feel about Wheeler Yuta. As a Philadelphia-based person, I should support a Philadelphia-based person in Wheeler Yuta. And yet, I find Wheeler Yuta to be a waste of time and energy. And I would continue to make the point that Wheeler Yuta has had a ton of time and TV time and supposed emotional equity pushed into his character. And it's not working. I brought this up last week, so I'm going to do it here. Wheeler Yuta comes out with the emo hair and the Spirit of Halloween fake beard looking thing, the very thin beard. Wheeler Yuta comes out like this. No one's afraid of Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta comes out through the crowd. People don't really give much of a shit because Wheeler Yuta hasn't done anything to get people to hate him or to love him. They feel nothing for him. It's akin to a 30-year marriage where the people were just staying together for the last 15 years for the kids. That's it. Wheeler Yuta, you are essentially a washed-up marriage. You're a marriage that should be in divorce court. That's what you are right now. So Wheeler Yuta comes out. No one cares. He has a match with Switchblade Jay White that really should have gone Switchblade's way in a way more authoritative way. It doesn't happen. Now, I mentioned they put a lot into Wheeler Yuta. He's been a ROH Pure champion. He's one of the Trios champions. They put a lot into him. But people don't care. There's no emotional equity that's been built up with Wheeler Yuta. Now, in fairness, Switchblade gets the win. There's no interference. He gets the win. But then afterwards, surprise, surprise, the Death Riders come out. And they interfere. Well, not they interfere. They rush the ring again. They start taking out Switchblade. And you're like, oh, great. It's happening again because they really do think that they're the NWO. Who comes out to make the save? Copeland. Who else makes the save? FTR. I've said this a million times. I like FTR a lot. I like Copeland. They're not the guys that I want to see saving the day. There's an entire locker room of younger talent who could use the exposure. Day one AEW guys who might benefit from continuing to defend the company because they keep going back to this shit, so you may as well roll with it. And yet, they don't go back to the young guys who are trying to defend their home turf, to the company that gave them their first job. They don't do that. We are back to rated FTR. It doesn't do it for me. The Moxley run as a whole, as champion, has not done it for me. And now looking down the line and saying, oh, is Copeland going to be the one to dethrone Moxley? That doesn't do it for me. Is Christian Cage going to cash in and get the that doesn't do it for me. So then I say, all right, well, what's the point of the Death Riders? And I keep asking this every week. I should actually do a little segment on the show. Maybe I should get some music in it. What's the point of the Death Riders? We don't know. I ask what the point of the Death Riders is because no one seems to know. They don't articulate a vision. They don't articulate what they're trying to accomplish. They don't articulate why the World Championship hasn't been displayed, why it's been in a briefcase. Now, there's a segment on the show where Renee Paquette it's the AEW close-up, and she's talking to Claudio and her husband, Jon Moxley, who we've established is her real-life husband. And she asks about the championship. She asks about what the plan is. And he hits you with this, you don't need to see the belt. You don't need to see it. Why do you need to see the championship? The championship's not something to display. It's not something to win. It's in here. It's in here. It's in there. It's in here. No. The championship is the championship. You do win it. You do hold it up. You do wear it. If Cody Rhodes all of a sudden took the belt, smashed it up and put it in a briefcase, people would be kind of pissed off. It's something you're supposed to display with pride. But okay. So he says that and this whole, it's in here. It's in here. And then he says, I'm going to make 1,000 Jon Moxleys. And I go, I don't want one Jon Moxley right now. I want the only one that I have off the TV for a while. I don't want 1,000 Jon Moxleys. I'd prefer to have 0 right now. And then away from the show, Moxley gave an interview. And in the interview, he said something to the extent of, people need to stop asking questions and enjoy the ride we're going to take them on. People need to stop asking questions about the Death Riders. They need to stop asking questions, and they need to enjoy the ride. I didn't consent to being on this ride. I don't remember even getting on this ride. I certainly don't want to be on the ride right now. I have no interest in being on the ride for the next few months. I'd actually be okay if you just let me off the fucking ride now, John, because it's not going anywhere. You know what I actually thought about? Because it's a parallel to what The Rock has said about, you got to let people need to enjoy the ride that The Rock takes them on. And he said that last year, ended up being a great Mania. He said it on NXT a few weeks ago. All right, fine, we'll reserve judgment. But Moxley says it. I go, what is the ride exactly? And I thought about it. I'm like, the Death Riders ride that they're taking us on is like a janky roller coaster. But when you get to the end of the roller coaster and you end up back in the station and you're supposed to like unlatch and you undo the seatbelt and then you get out to the left and you go grab stuff out of the cubbies, right? And then you go walk through the rest of the park. Instead of that, we get back in the station and Jon Moxley's at the controls and he just sends you back on the ride again. And you say, well, this didn't make any sense. I kind of enjoyed it at first, but I don't really want to ride the ride a second time. So then you pull back in for the second time and go, all right, well, surely this is it. And then he goes and hits the button to send you again. And you say, John, what's the point? Why are we doing this? He goes, because this amusement park was built. It's supposed to be something else, and it's not. So I'm going to send you on 1,000 rides. Don't ask questions. Just enjoy the ride. Why? I still have no idea what the Death Riders want. And it's this perpetual loop of bullshit. It's in here. 1,000 Moxleys. What's the point? For a while, they alluded to there being some sort of a grand voice, somebody who's maybe pulling strings behind the scenes. No, there's nothing like that. I don't think they even know. As a matter of fact, Marina Shafir is the only person who's gotten over in this group because she looks like a badass. Wheeler Yuta, Moxley, no. There are friends of mine who are pro wrestling fans who have liked Moxley. They are out. Who like Pac, have liked Claudio. They are out. This shit needs to end. The worst part is there's this prevailing wisdom that apparently Darby Allin, maybe it's going to be Darby goes and climbs Mount Everest, and that Darby's going to plant the flag, the AEW flag, at the summit of Mount Everest, and look at a camera and say, I thought this would make me happy, but the thing that I want more than anything, even more than climbing Mount Everest, is the AEW World Championship. Months away. This shit can't keep going for months. I don't know what kind of audience is going to be left. This show? No. This Moxley shit needs to end. And the worst part is, it feels like there are no checks, there are no balances. It's just a perpetual loop of dog shit. Somebody make it make sense. I don't know if anybody actually can. But since I've gone negative, let me bring it back around to some positive, okay? Bring around a little bit of positivity because I'm going to look ahead to the Royal Rumble. Now, I've had a thought about doing a post-Royal Rumble show. I'm not guaranteeing that. I'll definitely be here next Thursday with a regular It's Just Wrestling. Is it possible that I'll do something around the Royal Rumble? Maybe. Royal Rumble is one of my favorite PLEs, without a doubt. Now, a lot of times, the surprise entrance and everything, they don't live up to the hype, and it kind of is what it is. But I love the Royal Rumble. Conceptually, I love the Royal Rumble. And we know that there are a bunch of entrants in this event that are going to have people's heads spinning. And we know that there are a lot of storylines that could come out of it. And in fairness, there are, I would say 3 or 4 ways that I could see the Royal Rumble playing out. Now, as of right now, these are the confirmed entrants in the men's Royal Rumble. LA Knight, John Cena in his final Royal Rumble, CM Punk, Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Rey Mysterio, Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura, Logan Paul, Penta, Chad Gable, Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes. Of that list, I am most interested to see who Penta ends up interacting with. Will we see Penta and Chad Gable again? Probably. Penta and Braun Breaker? Oh, I'm intrigued. Penta and Sami Zayn? Or Penta and Drew McIntyre? I'm intrigued. But it all comes down to what happens at the end. How does the Royal Rumble end? And there's this looming cloud. And we know that there's a good chance that Roman Reigns and CM Punk are going to find themselves in the ring together. And there happens to be this favor that Paul Heyman owes CM Punk. Could we end up in a scenario where it's John Cena, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk is the final 3? Cena gets dumped out. It's Roman and it's Punk. It's possible. Could we see a betrayal? Roman Reigns goes to back up. Paul Heyman pulls himself up onto the ring apron, pulls the top rope down, dumps Roman Reigns over the top. A true betrayal. One that would certainly incense Roman. At which point, Heyman has to say, I owed him a favor. Do we get a payoff of Roman going after Heyman? Do we get a payoff of Punk getting out of the ring and protecting Heyman? What happens? Now, I think the other way that favor could end up working out is, do we see Punk lose the Rumble, try to get involved in the Elimination Chamber? Maybe it doesn't happen, and then Roman works his way into one of the main events, and as a favor, Heyman gets CM Punk put into a championship match as a 3-way. Maybe. What I want to see happen is Punk and Roman as the final 2. And from that point, I want the betrayal. And I want to see where we go from there. What happens between Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns if he has to betray his tribal chief? Cinema. Now in the Women's Royal Rumble, Charlotte Flair is coming back. We don't know if Jade Cargill is going to be there, but it's entirely possible. AJ Lee's name has been floated about. At least one of the Bellas might make an appearance. I will recap the Royal Rumble next week or at some point. We'll do a recap of the show. Collision also has a pretty darn good card, so I'll be watching the Royal Rumble live and then Collision after the fact. And then next week, we'll discuss whatever happens on Raw and the fallout from the Royal Rumble, as well as Dynamite, which will hopefully bounce back. We'll do that here on It's Just Wrestling. So thank you for dealing with my throat and my voice cutting out pretty consistently on the show. Hopefully the audio actually does record on this one, because if it doesn't, there's just no show this week. But if you're hearing it, it means that it worked. Now I'll be back later this week, or I guess next week, with another show. If you can, do me a favor, like the video, share the video, and subscribe on YouTube on the It's Just Wrestling channel. And by the way, this show is also available in podcast feed. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate the support that you've also shown to the show on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. It's been great. So until next week, or whenever the next time is that I talk into this microphone, hopefully with a stronger voice, I've been Russ Joy. This is It's Just Wrestling. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to all of you very, very soon.